Really what we're in is a systemic and dynamic shift in housing.
Hello and welcome back to Change and the Market, your weekly look at the changing real estate market. I'm your host, Brian, joined as always by Mr. Chris Masiello. Chris, how are you doing today?
Hey, Brian, good to be with you and good to see everybody. Be with everybody.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to have a little bit of a shorter episode this week because we're getting ready. We're gearing up for Memorial Day weekend, ready to get into it. So we're going to send everybody off with a little bit of real estate information before they head into that Memorial Day weekend. So how have things changed? What's the market doing right now, Chris?
Well, what you're really seeing is the market itself settling in. And you just see signs of that. We moved into what we would typically look at as seasonality for the housing market. Internally, the last 2 days in a row, I think we booked 35 transactions each day, Monday and Tuesday. And we're filming this on Wednesday. You guys obviously see it on Friday, but so that's a pretty good indication about what's going on. But, a few things that kind of came across the wire. You're seeing more stronger builder sentiment, where that the builders are understanding that we're not, as we've been talking about, that we're not in an economic housing cycle, but we're really more in a shift of housing. And so when we say a shift of housing, that includes real estate, of course, right? But it includes all housing, though. It includes apartment buildings and multifamilies and condominiums and retirement communities and single families, right? So I think a lot of times when we say real estate, I think it kind of gets interpreted as single family homes, but housing is having a shift. I think the builders are understanding that now, and so there's a lot more positive sentiment from their part about coming in and filling in the gaps where they exist, and being mindful of the economics, but not totally scared off by things like the noise about maybe a possible recession coming and things like that. Because I think they're beginning to recognize that housing has like a dramatic shift that it's going through, and that they can fill the gap.
And then kind of moving on, that the second topic we were talking about kind of before we started was that Zillow put out some, we were talking about last year, Zillow was kind of pessimistic on the market. And similarly to how we've been talking, seeing this shift, your kind of observation was that Zillow seems to be seeing the same thing that you are. Talk a little bit about that.
I'm not a huge Zillow fan when it comes to, some of their prognostications. Although I thought it was interesting. Last year, they were very negative about the market. I think they predicted actually like a 2% drop in the market. And now they've come back out and they've revised it, and they've said that they feel like the market is going to respond well, which it is in its own way. And that there's 37 markets across the country that they're really bullish about. And of those 37, the Northern New England markets that we cover, the population centers in Northern New England, they were all part of those 37. So I think, a little bit of armchair quarterbacking, right, for Zillow. That's okay. That's their right to do that. But nevertheless, it's good information. And I think people are feeling bullish about housing. Again, not just, single family real estate, single family homes, but about housing in general, just because of this shortage. And the shortage is going to take a while. And I enjoy history. So like during the Second World War, we were busy making other things other than cars. So auto manufacturers were tasked for war production, and we in essence didn't make any new cars, and for 4 years. And so used cars had as much value as a new car. And we're kind of seeing the same thing in housing. You're taking a look at resale housing, which is getting almost kind of the same value as new housing because we haven't produced anymore. So we're in this cycle and kind of this reboot or shift. And I think what you're seeing is this kind of slow recognition, acceptance, somewhere in between the two, of really what we're in is a systemic and dynamic shift in housing.
Not everybody can be as right as you are all the time, Chris. But it's good that Zillow caught up eventually. So.
I don't know about being right all the time.
Well, at least on this show,
I've just mastered the wisdom from my own mistakes. So
there you go. There you go. Well, before we wrap up, we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about Memorial Day. So we're going to end on that note. As we're going into this Memorial Day weekend, what do you have to say about Memorial Day, Chris?
Yeah, so we have a tradition within our community, within our organizations, where I send out a kind of a history of Memorial Day. And, for those of you watching and you want to do a little bit of fun research, look up the history of Memorial Day. And it starts with the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers and Arlington Cemetery, and some of the history around it is really amazing. And I think, we all look at it, especially in the Northeast, right, where we're goodbye to winter, hello summer. We get excited because we got weather and pools opening and all these other things. But I think it's important to take a moment and understand really why we have this holiday and some of the facts behind it. Like an interesting fact is Arlington National Cemetery was the family home for Robert E. Lee. And when Robert E. Lee decided that he didn't want to be the general for the Army of the Potomac for the North, Lincoln came and confiscated his family home and turned it into the National Cemetery for the North. I mean, there are just some really interesting facts to get into and how the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers work and all that. Yeah. And as a country, we have so much to be proud of, and certainly thankful for the people who served and sacrificed on our behalf.
Definitely a lot of fascinating history there that is always something interesting to kind of look into. I mean, you got a long weekend, so you got some extra time.
That's right.
That's going to do it for this episode of Change in the Market. We hope everybody has a wonderful and safe Memorial Day weekend, and we'll see you all back here next week for another brand new episode of Change and the Market.
All right, folks. Good to be with you. Have a great weekend. Take care.